On today's episode of the Think Bigger Mastermind, I have the privilege of spending some time with interviewing and masterminding with business leader and mortgage industry innovator Trevor Hammond. Welcome to the Think Bigger Mastermind with Steve Yeager and Justin Stoddard, where we interview some of the world's brightest and most innovative minds, helping grow your thinking, your actions, and your impact. All right, welcome back to the Think Bigger Mastermind. Excited to be here with someone who's now become a good friend of mine, even a mentor of mine, Trevor Hammond. Hello, Trevor.
Hello, Justin. Good to be here with you.
Yeah, always good to have this conversation. I'll tell a funny story. Trevor and I were introduced by a loan officer that works for Trevor, and we sat down. We had maybe half an hour, maybe an hour scheduled. 3 hours later, we walk out and just convinced that we'd not only be friends, but we'd be having ongoing conversations as our paths were in different industries, but very much aligned in the sense that we saw that the value proposition in title and escrow, my industry, and the mortgage industry, Trevor's industry, we thought were weak and needed to be disrupted, needed to be altered and improved. And we've set out to kind of do that, kind of paralleling each other and having lots of fun conversations. So it's been fun.
It has been.
Yeah.
We've had some events together, a lot of great conversations, and both similar frustrations with our industry.
Yeah.
Just knowing that they're both commoditized, extremely commoditized in general. Same with the real estate community that you have a big impact on.
Yeah, and that's really kind of what's probably a passion of ours is that both Trevor and I service the real estate industry, and we see as technology improves, I don't know that the service or the value proposition by technology is necessarily serving people in the best way. And oftentimes our industries are following that kind of lesser value proposition. And so we're set out to do some big things within our individual respective industries. And excited to have Trevor here today because I've kind of been a student and a mentee of his for some time now as he's put on these events called the 10X Growth Summit. And we're going to get into that here in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But I want to have kind of Trevor share a little bit of his background, kind of who he is outside of this world that we swim in, as well as have him talk a little bit about maybe some of why he's dissatisfied with kind of the direction your industry's headed.
Thank you. Yeah, I got into this business clear back in 1998. Fell into it just like pretty much everybody I believe in the mortgage industry does. Probably similar to the real estate world, title industry too. You don't grow up thinking you're going to get into these businesses typically. Fell into the business, immediately loved it. But like everybody, you talk to them, you get into a commission-only type of business thinking, man, nobody's going to tell me when I got to show up to work. Nobody's going to set a limit on my income. I mean, what could be better than that? And then pretty soon, if you succeed and you're good with people and building rapport and trust and relationships, maybe learning how to manage a database, you realize you're working 70 hours a week. You might have freedom of money. You might have lots of income coming in, but you're also never detached from your phone. You're missing dinners with your family. You're not exercising. And I was on that path for many years. I like money. Life with money is better than life without money because I've been both. I've had both. And I remember in 2006, we didn't really quite know what was coming yet in this industry, but in 2006, I was number 2 in the country as an originator, loan officer. And I was upset. I was very displeased.
About?
Being number 2.
I love it.
And I called my good friend up at the time, and who was number 1 by a hair, and I said, you know what? Game over. 2007, I'm going to be number 1. I wanted to call you ahead of time, let you know. And I worked like a dog. I built up my team. I was number 1 by a landslide. Long story short, in 2007. Got to the first call of the year, waiting for the glory and the parade that was going to be done in my name. And it was about a 5-second announcement of who was number one for all of the year. And that was it. On to the next thing.
Did they pronounce your name correctly? Or?
Yeah, I think they did that. But you really pause and you go, okay, I climbed to the top of this building. And there's always a taller building to climb, right? I think any of us that have had some success in our life, there's always going to be another thing to conquer, another goal that we can set and go try to achieve. But what happened also is my daughter was born November of 2006. So all of 2007, when I had one goal in mind was to be number one in the country, I was never home for dinner. I barely ever seemed like I saw her. And even when I was with her, I was figuring out strategies and if my team was performing and how we were going to get more business in and help more clients so I could be number one. And I changed everything at that point. I realized the impact of time and money and how those converge. And I wasn't on a path that I would ever want to stay on.
Was the turning point for you, Trevor, was it that call? Were you like, all of that for this? Or was there...
It was that call.
Okay.
It was that call.
What am I doing? What am I spending my time on for that?
Yeah, I've always invested in coaching. I read a lot of books, as you've seen when you come to my office. And it was, what do I want to do when I grow up? Right? I've probably had the conversation with myself and my wife multiple times over the career. And it needed to be about more than mortgages. If this career was about doing loans, doing mortgages, calculating incomes for clients, quoting interest rates, it wasn't ever going to be a career I could be happy in. So I changed how I looked at the business. I changed my outlook on what people truly needed. And I started looking at, I turned it all around. I said, how can I have the most impact on them so I love what I do? And then the money, through proving to myself, the money then actually followed.
Interesting.
You don't always know that. You hear maybe that if you read a book or you hear some fancy quote or see something online. Yeah, follow your passion, do what you love, and the money will follow. Sounds like a load of, baloney, but it was true. Whether or not it was true, I loved what I was doing, and my team followed suit. And then, of course, we went through a big mortgage meltdown, as we all, many of us who might be listening to this went through. But I had a purpose. I finally, for the first time, had a real purpose, and it was financial education. I mean, that's what I really gravitated to. And now I saw a whole new path for building up a business and having an impact, and just trusting that, I'd always be fine with money. I'd have enough money. I'd have enough clients, but what happens is you just have more people who want you when you're focused on giving more value. So that was my journey back then.
So I love what you said there. Of course, the title of our podcast is the Think Bigger Mastermind, but that's just simply a means to an end. The end is to have bigger impact, right? And the intermediate step is to have bigger activities, bigger actions. But you're right. I think the people that are drawn to this podcast, the people that I'm passionate about being around, and probably why we've connected so well, are people who want to live lives of impact, right? And impact in impacting other people. I think people is the place where you can have the biggest, longest lasting investment of impact. And so I appreciate you saying that, because that resonates with me, and I'm sure a lot of those that are listening as well. And
I will say it's tough. There's kind of some steps you got to go through, I guess you would say, because if you're just in that survival mode, it's hard to hear this, and really you might believe it, but it's hard to trust in it, because you're just trying to figure out when your next transaction is going to come. If you're a real estate agent and you're struggling to get that next client on board, it's tough to think bigger. It really is. So I empathize with that. You've got to hit a certain level of comfort, because there are like survival salespeople. There are thriving salespeople that are making plenty of money and have lots of clients. Maybe don't have the lifestyle they had dreamed of, but not a lot of people get to that purpose level of business where they're just all about giving. And because you do have to get a certain level of comfort in place to keep your family happy and safe, a little bit of money in the bank, and then you can start thinking bigger.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's hard to think about impacting other people when you come home and you've got a wife who's concerned about the debt load growing, et cetera. Like I've been there as well, right?
Yep.
Where
Yep.
you're, whether in a startup or in an industry that's struggling. Remember my background being a high-end home builder. And there needs to be, I agree, kind of a certain level of success to where you can then begin to reinvest any additional time and resources into impact, which then adds back to the success tenfold, right?
Yep.
So maybe a great segue for the rest of our conversation. So as I've mentioned and kind of alluded to at the beginning of our show here today, Trevor has hosted, and it's becoming quite the spectacle, quite the place to be for people a couple times a year, his 10X Growth Summits. And I'm going to have Trevor actually walk us through this today because I think the principle is very powerful, and that's why people continue to come back and bring their friends, is because of the impact that it has upon their thinking. Again, it's hard to have bigger impact unless your thinking grows to then change your conversations, your activities, that then leads to the bigger impact. So Trevor, walk us through that a little bit, and I'll probably interject as you go along because I've had a personal experience with this, but what it would look like for someone to go through kind of the 10X Growth Summit goal setting process and what impact that would have upon their thinking.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things we do now. So it's funny, this journey that I'm on, what I've learned, how I've learned how all this connects is I'm really just sharing my own journey. I learned how to think and plan 10X, probably 6 or 7 years ago. I never know who this guy named Grant Cardone was. I hadn't even heard of his book. Yeah. I just had mentors of mine who. So this thought process has been around a long time, and the idea, and the reason it works is because when you think 10X and you start to put a plan together that is 10 times where you are today, you actually have no room to bring along bad habits. You cannot bring anything along that isn't going to fit into that new world. Now, if I set goals that are, I want to grow 10% this year, right? Let's face it. I can basically do a few more calls a week. I could have a couple more meetings a week, and I can still bring a whole bunch of bad habits along with me. When you go 10X, they're not allowed.
It busts everything, breaks everything.
Everything is broken down, start it all over, and build it as if you were already there. And if you don't think bigger, I don't think it's as easy to find a purpose in your business, because most people in my career, and I've done a lot of coaching, mostly around mortgage professionals and real estate agents. I've always been in the mortgage profession, but I realized we're all talking the same language. We're all trying to hire better, build better systems, build a better experience for our customer, build teams so that we can let go of a lot of the things we don't enjoy doing. But there was never a real good path to it. So it was a lot of just experimenting, with myself, falling on my face. That didn't work. Nobody responded to that very well. And just trying again, because I knew there had to be a better path to build this business. So to think 10X is hard for some, but it's going to get you out of your comfort zone. And it's also going to be the catalyst that shows people bigger doesn't mean more hours. More revenue, more clients, a bigger team has to lead to you doing fewer of the things you don't enjoy or aren't as good at. And that's a big mindset obstacle for people. When you ask somebody what their goals are and you see that they're real tentative with setting their goals ahead of time, they're not really big, right? Usually if you probably are asking, I know you ask a lot of people, what are your goals for the coming year, next few years? They don't set real big goals. And I found that mostly it's because they tie more revenue, more success, to less time to do the things they enjoy, more stress, more complexities. And I've really had to go in search of how to not do that. I want more revenue. I want that with more fun, and I want that with more free time off. And that's just been my journey. And now I'm starting to see, well, by golly, a lot of people would like to be on that same journey. They just didn't know it was possible in my business or in the real estate business or any really commission-only business. So that's been fun because I figured it out myself, and now I just get to share with other people, which has led to these events, these 10X Growth Summits.
When you were leading this the last time, I remember you talking about setting a goal of not only 10Xing a goal, but also your free time, right? Like your time off, like your days off.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people don't think it's possible to do those in the same year, right? Or at the same time. But you're saying, I've done it. It can be done.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think when I run people through this exercise, whether it's directly with one of my mortgage advisors or in a group setting like you've been to, most people will start. Let's just go through the process, because that might help us with some examples.
Perfect.
Because the first question you have to do is pick a metric, pick a number that you base your business around, and it might be number of transactions per year.
Okay.
Could be your personal income. Could be revenue of some sort, but they usually go with some kind of revenue type of a number, a metric. So, as we've talked a lot about, let's say you made $100,000 last year.
Okay.
We would then have them write down on a piece of paper the 10 times number of that, which would be $1 million, right? So most people start with a revenue or income type of a number when they first do this. Last time, which was our fourth 10X Growth Summit, each one keeps growing and getting more fun. And by the way, December, plan on that one for the fifth one.
Cool. I'll be in attendance for sure.
The last time I wanted people to realize, because some of them have, we've got a lot of people coming to every one of these, and some of them have already done this exercise. We don't do this exercise every time. It's just a mindset that transcends everything else. 10X the time you spend with your children. 10X the amount of time you exercise on a weekly basis. 10X your current weight loss goal to what you could do. 10X how far you run, how many miles you run a week or bike. 10X the time you spend with your spouse without kids. There's so many things you can do. 10X the fun you have at work with your team so that they never want to leave you. I mean, you can go so many directions with the concept and this mindset, and then you get to have fun getting really creative. Okay, how would we do that? How do we even measure it is one of the things. People pick income or revenue because it's really easy to measure, and they've usually been tracking it, so it's an easy start.
Let's use even the one that we were kind of playing with before, which is number of transactions, because I think that's maybe an easy way to kind of calculate and count. So let's pretend that I'm a realtor and that I currently close, what do we say, 4 a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're a real estate professional. You're sitting down in one of our workshops, and you write down you closed 48 transactions last year.
It's a good year, right?
Right. That's a pretty good year in the real estate business, right?
That puts you about the top 2% of real estate producers in the Portland area.
Yep. And those are ideal because they are already prepared to think 10X. They have already probably, this is a fun thing to do as well, is if people don't believe it, think back to a time you were 10 times less than you are today. Right? There was a time when you only did 4 transactions in a year. Could have been your first year, hopefully not into your second year. And now you just did 48. You have already 10X'd your business, so it's not impossible. We've all 10X'd something. So that's very important to get across when you're thinking this way. It might seem crazy right now, but that same agent now has to write down that they are now at a level in the future, there's no time frame to this, where they are now closing 480 transactions per year.
Awesome.
Very awesome. In a group setting, it's really fun because everybody starts to snicker and laugh, and I start to lose their attention because they're like, oh, what is this? This is lame.
No way.
But they've got to write it down. You just got to write it down. And then the first thing now, where the rubber starts meeting the road, is write down the top 5 changes you made for this to all come true. You're already closing 480 transactions a year. You have to say it that way. What were the top 5 changes you made that led to all this?
So let's say that I'm in that spot.
Okay.
So I definitely, if I were a realtor closing 480 homes per year, I definitely am not able to generate all of those leads myself. I wouldn't be able to go on all of the listing nor buyer appointments myself. I definitely wouldn't be able to do all the paperwork myself. Right. So I'm starting to realize that within going from 48 to 480, all of the things that typically people define themselves as what makes them a realtor, they're moving now more into almost a CEO type role, right, as opposed to a realtor in production role.
Yeah, and
can't do that. Like my whole day is totally different.
Through this whole process, you get really clear on what is your unique value that you bring to the table for your customers, for your team. But you might write down, man, if I'm at 480 transactions, I finally let go and I hired a buyer's agent. Okay, well, you probably need more than one.
Right.
I stopped getting in the way of my transaction coordinator.
Okay.
Let them handle the details because they are way better than me at them. I stopped micromanaging the rest of my team. I ramped up my marketing through my CRM, right, my database. There's all kinds of things you would have to do. So what are the top 5 that they have come to mind that would require them to go to get to 480 transactions a year? So that's the first step. But as you say all those things, they're probably all things they've already thought about doing anyway, right? So now all of a sudden it's not quite so abstract. Going from 48 to 480 sounds ridiculous. But now they start really visualizing some really big changes they made to be there because they already have to pretend they're there. The next question that they have to answer for themselves is, what are the top 3 delegations I made?
Things I got rid of.
Could be parts of your business. It could be projects that you wanted to launch that you knew would grow your business, you just didn't have the time to do. But what's the most common delegation that high-producing real estate agents do?
Well, the paperwork, like the administrative side of the business, they don't do.
Yep. So you get to a certain point of productivity and amount of business and revenue, you hire a transaction coordinator. You might even just share one at first, and then you have your own. You know, your company might provide one, but then you get so productive, like, I need my own, right? In the mortgage world, I went from my what we call a rugged individualist. I'm a loan officer that thinks they have to do everything and somehow market and sell myself and build relationships and get out and shake hands and kiss babies and go back and calculate income and fill out loan applications. And then babysit the whole process and then get paperwork from the clients, talk to underwriters. No, you get your own processor at some point. And then you get an assistant. Okay, and there's all kinds of fancy names for it, but you basically add an assistant, and you're gradually taking more and more off your plate because you're getting more and more clear about what it is you need to do. Which leads to the next question. What are the top 3 things you do in your business at this level?
Boy, so if I were a realtor, and I'm even thinking some realtors that I've heard of or that I know that are either on that path or at that level, they're in very much, they're constantly looking for talent. Like they're lead generating, but they're not necessarily lead generating for listings and buyers. They're lead generating for talented people that will then go get listings and buyers, right? So they're spending time doing that. They're building really high level relationships with influencers that can send not just one deal, but bigger deals or a myriad of deals their way. That'd be one. And then I would say learning and masterminding with other people that are on that same path so they can come back and teach that team that now they've recruited to do what they've done, right? To grow and to perform at a really high level. Yep.
Those are some great examples. Absolutely. And in the mortgage side of things and real estate side of things, they might go, wow, to go from 48 to 480, I need to call on those builders that I haven't been calling on. I've been too scared to call, but that's how I got there. I got one big account. I created some other strategic alliances with people. Good. I actually started getting up in front of a room of people and teaching, right? Leveraging my time more effectively, where I can spend an hour or two teaching a room of 20 to 25 first-time home buyers or move-up buyers or downsizers so that 5 in the room raise their hand and say, can we go have coffee? I'd like to talk with you more. Versus what I call the sniper method, where you're just one by one. You can do that at 48. You can't do that at 480, right?
No way.
So if that's a big change you made, are you going to do it, or are you going to delegate it, or is it one of the key 3 things you now do in your business, right? You might just do the one-to-many events, and then let your buyer's agent do the one-to-one activities. Right, that would be that's a big shift, and that can have so much leverage in it for a real estate professional trying to get to that next level. And by mapping it out in this process, it's a nice step-by-step thinking process to go, I could do that. Wow. Okay. So you got to come up with your 3 delegations, the 3 key things, the most important things you do in your business. Depending on how big it is, you might just be showing up and coaching your team. right? You might
Right.
you might be writing books. We have friends that have written books. I've written a book. I'm writing more books because that puts you on the map. It changes the game where you're getting chased versus trying to chase
Right,
business
credibility.
all the time. You are an expert at what you do, and that's what you have to do to go from 48 to 480.
Right.
It's a whole different game.
I want to interject something here really quick, just in case anybody's shut down at this point, saying, I closed 48 last year and I have zero interest in closing 480. The point isn't that you may ever want to actually close 480. The point is this is going to expand your thinking and help you to easily get to 60 or 75
Yes.
or 100, right? The point is not actually to 10x. Now, it could be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So in case you've kind of tuned out because you're like, I don't want that. I want to be a dad, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you could actually do both. But if that's a limiting belief for you, saying I don't ever aspire to be that big, the point of this isn't necessarily to get you to 480. The point is to get you to break your current systems to get you through that threshold that's keeping you at 48. Correct?
Well, absolutely. Again, we just had to choose one metric for this example, but we started off by saying it could be time off, it could be time with your kids,
Good.
it could be
Great.
amount of pounds I want to lose this year. The magic is in the process. It's not in that number you wrote down. Okay, we always say there is no arrival. There's only arriving. Right? We're always working on this journey. You may never get to 480, but in 30 minutes, you got real clear about 3 things you wish you weren't doing daily or weekly.
Right.
You wrote down 3 things, and they're staring at you on this piece of paper, going, and you're going to start questioning yourself. Well, why am I doing these? Like, I could get rid of these now.
Right.
I don't like doing those things, and that's actually what makes me miserable throughout my week. Why don't I hire a buyer's agent? Why don't I hire my own assistant if my company won't, pay for it? It's my business. And it's what you write down between the lines, not that number at the top, because so many, I guess you'd call it butterfly effects, will come from the pursuit of that just arbitrary number you threw down there. If you get to 60 from 48, it's pretty good growth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another 12 transactions a year.
But it's not about
What's that
the
do for you?
480. You are so right on that because you've been through it before and you see the big picture of what it does for you. It's about change, right? All growth comes from change. So if you want change, if you want something different in your business, you have to do things differently. Yeah. And this is an exercise that will push you so far outside of your comfort zone and challenge the way you currently think. But then it comes down to, at the end of it, the last question. What 3 things back in 2017, right, because we've been talking about from the future, what 3 things kickstarted all of this growth? Now we're back to today, and you can start mapping out a plan. I hired a buyer's agent.
What was the first thing that I did to begin this pursuit of getting to 480?
Yeah, I just had fun envisioning I'm at this 480 level, whether or not I want to be there or not. I wrote it down. I did what Trevor said. I followed the process. But through that, by the end of this, you're like, okay, what kickstarted all this? To even start going in that direction so that I have more money or more freedom to do the things I want to do, what kickstarted this?
There was a first step. There was a...
And you got to come up with 3. A lot of people, man, that's it. I'm hiring an assistant. They get to the end of this, and like that is their 90-day plan, because that's the other thing we usually will go into on implementation, because none of this matters if you don't go do something. They'll just go out like, that's what I'm going to do. The next 90 days, I'm hiring an assistant. Yeah. Or the next 90 days, I actually went out and spent a huge $50 a month on a CRM, a database. And I started using it, right? The best CRMs are the ones you use. They get really clear on what they could do today to at least move them in that direction. And that's really what comes from that effect. And then that's why you can come back every time and do it around a different topic or a different metric. And you'll figure out one way in the next 30, 60, 90 days that you can move the needle a little bit in that direction of a goal that will make you happier or have more time.
What's the next step? Get rid of something. Either start doing something that it was on my list of things I do when I'm at 480, right? Or start to get rid of something that I know I can't be doing when I'm at 480, right? This is maybe kind of a way to look at that.
I'd say one of my favorite things, again, this is my journey that I get to now have the luxury of sharing with others. because I invest in a lot of coaching and growth and for myself, and I just get to share it. But I love writing down what I'm doing in that futuristic business because it helps me get re-centered around what do I actually love to do. And oftentimes when you write that part down, you answer those questions, that if my business was that big, a lot of clarity comes from the fact of what you're no longer doing in this futuristic business and what you are doing. And I've come to the conclusion, I love sitting around just having amazing conversations. If I could go through my week and just sit across the table with people like you that like to think bigger, with real estate professionals that like to think bigger, mortgage professionals like to think bigger, anybody that just likes to think outside the box a little bit and actually take action on things. I love having these conversations. A homeowner that's trying to figure out if I should sell and move up or just, restructure my mortgage or downsize or what do I do with this money coming from my sale. Those are amazing conversations. If I could do that all day, I don't need to fill out loan applications. I don't need to calculate income. There are people better than me at that. And that's crazy talk for what you could call me as a loan officer. But I realize there are people that have high attention to detail that love that aspect. I love showing people how this house, this real estate, these borrowing decisions, these repayment decisions impact their life, short and long term, and either impede or enhance their ability to achieve all their other goals. That's an amazing conversation to have.
Yeah.
So now I get to teach my loan officers how to have those conversations. And then when the real estate professionals hear that we're having those conversations, they're like, oh my gosh,
right.
Are you guys financial advisors? No. We're actually helping people manage the biggest debt of their life and make smarter decisions. And I wrote down a long time ago on one of these sheets with those questions, that's what I'd be doing.
Spending your time educating loan officers.
Coaching.
And
yes.
realtors, yeah.
Coaching and helping people I value grow. That's what I wrote down that I would do all day long. And it's ironic that that's most of my day now and week. I'm actually doing it. And I wrote that stuff down 5-6 years ago.
Crazy. Yeah, so Trevor's role, I don't even know if we shared this up front, but he's the regional retail manager for Sierra Pacific here in the Northwest.
Yep.
Does an amazing job. This conversation that we've had, as he described, is one of, I'm sure, many similar conversations you have each week with people who are on your team who are then taking that same information, helping implement it into their realtor businesses or into their real estate businesses. And powerful. What a difference from where maybe the industry is going, right? Which is push a button, get a mortgage, where one size fits all, and it's just a matter of rate and turn time with no consideration of where this person is really at, where they really want to be, and that there might be some different alternatives and ways to look at their financial future to where they're actually on a path that's going to get them there most effectively.
Have you heard or seen that new website, Will a Robot Replace Me? I'm gonna mess up the URL.
No.
Okay, go look this up after we're done here.
I gotta write this down.
I was on that today, and I'm gonna be doing a coaching video around this to my team of mortgage professionals. You can type in any job title. When you type in loan officer, it's basically, there's a lot of calculations and studies behind it. If you click on the About tab, it'll tell you the scientists are behind it.
Okay.
And it's all about, is automation going to take my job from me? And there was also Housing Wire had a good article on this as well recently, I think, just in the last day or two. And it pops up when I type in loan officer, it says, you are doomed. 98% chance that the majority of people are going to be replaced by robots. Quicken is leading the way. And then if you type in real estate sales agent, it's 86%. And it says the robots are watching. If you type in, there's two different titles of realtor you can type in. One of them is 98% as well. So if you type in teacher or instructor, I think it's 0.94%.
Fascinating, Trevor.
So that's what I do. And I think we all need to be thinking about that. When Quicken is out, they're amazing marketers. Yeah. Rocket Mortgage is an amazing marketing technique. But this idea of people borrowing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on their own via a phone who don't even really understand money in general, what to do with their money, whether or not they should put all their money down from their sale or pay off other debts or put money into little Johnny's college, how interest rates really work, what impacts those rates, how to boost my credit scores over time. There's so much complexity in personal finance, and that's a big problem with our industries. I think Stratmore said like $3.8 billion is being invested in 2017 into mortgage technology. Mm-hmm. That's where everybody's trying. They're all chasing that. Mm-hmm. I'm going the other way and going, we'll get you the mortgage, right? But how you borrow and repay this money over decades and decades and decades of owning real estate impacts virtually every other aspect of your financial future. Yeah. How you borrow this money will impact whether or not you retire someday when you want and how you want. And you need advice, you need an educator, you need a teacher. Right. The products, everybody's got the same products, right? So I think if you're a real estate professional or title and escrow professional, any of these very commoditized industries, if you're just helping people find a house that they could go on Zillow and find, that's a commodity, right? But if you're helping them make perhaps the biggest investment of their life, which is typically the home, the house itself, that's worth more than just about any other asset most Americans have, and you view your business that way and you run it that way, and you build from that, then you can't be replaced because it's just different. If you're all about being an expert negotiator, if you're all about being a connector, those things can't be replaced. And I think going on that site, having a little fun with it, it also freaks you out. It kind of scares you because it's coming. You better learn how to really tap into what people truly need and not just try to sell them what they think they want. Set the table right. Get them on the bus with you so they really understand how to make the right decisions to impact their lives, like you started this whole conversation about. But go check that out. It's pretty fun to watch.
That's awesome. Amazing bonus material for anybody who's stayed for our whole conversation. So anyway, want to thank Trevor. Obviously, it's very apparent that you have very different conversations with your clients than Quicken ever could, and most mortgage professionals in the entire world have with their people. Very innovative, very impressive.
I'm working on it though.
And
my vision, we're going to get more and more mortgage professionals having these conversations because it changes lives. And then I get to have an impact on more people.
So if you're a mortgage professional and you're wondering like, boy, I went to a training and all we talked about were rates and how I can better compete with Quicken, playing Quicken's game, you may be in the wrong spot. You may be realizing like there's a different conversation that I can bring to the realtors who can be a great referral resource for me and or the clients that I serve. I would encourage you to reach out to Trevor Hammond. Trevor, how do people get a hold of you?
They can email me, trevor.hammond, trevor.hammond at spmc.com. They can look me up on LinkedIn. I am on there. I write a lot of content, a lot of blogs, just helping the mortgage community, real estate community, any sales community really improve what they do and have more purpose. Anyway. But I love having good conversations. That would be fantastic. Great mind, great person, and thanks for being on today's show. It's been a total pleasure. Me too. As always. Thanks for having me. Of course. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. We want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Think Bigger Mastermind with Steve Yeager and Justin Stoddard. Now, here's how you can show us some digital love in return. Number 1, subscribe to our show. Number 2, give us a review. Number 3, share this with a friend. And number 4, go think bigger.